online classes for geography. We are about to begin chapter 17, that is representation of relief features. Some of the factors regarding that lesson we have already discussed. In this part of video, we will be discussing about what is a drainage pattern and how to identify the different drainage pattern that will be asked in the topo sheet question. So here, when we will just go through the part of drainage, I hope you will be able to understand how to identify the different and the various kinds of pattern of drainage. Let's try to take a look at through the textbook so you will understand in a more proper way. Let's begin. Drainage pattern especially formed by the river, and we are all aware that the river originates in the mountain, and when it starts its journey down the slopes, it forms the small streams and join to the main streams on the way. Now here, a drainage which describes a network made by rivers along with the tributaries and subtributaries. In short, a drainage is a kind of pattern which is formed by the river at different angles. Now when we just take a look at here, a well-developed river valley can be divided into 3 stages. Now according to these stages, river form different patterns of drainages, and that we are supposed to identify in the topo sheet. So in short, we will just discuss about what are those 3 main courses and how they affect in the formation of different types of patterns made by the river. Take a look at here. First stage comes as upper course. Now in this upper course, which is also formed on the mountain, called by the name a mountain stage. Now here, because of the steep slope, the water flows in a very swift and rapid way, and because of this swiftly moving water, here erosion takes place in a very great work, and here resulting to have valleys and gorges. Then what happens on the way when the river starts its upper course? The characteristics, it is what? The valleys which are formed, they are having the steep slopes, because here the main work is cutting down of the mountain, and this one can be shown with the closed contour lines. And already we have discussed about that the contour lines are used to show the same height places along with its steep or gentle slope. Steep slope represented by counter, very closed one, and gentle slopes, the contour lines are far apart. Now when the river valleys are represented on the map by V-shaped contour lines, and its higher elevation is towards the pointing. Fairly straight course of rivers. Mostly the course of the river is straight one because it has a lots of cutting process because of the steep slope, and in this course we cannot see lots of tributaries because there is no chance to meet and form the different tributaries or the streams. These are some of the characteristics we can identify in the upper course. As soon as the river comes towards the another form, it is called by the name middle course. In the middle course, which is also known by the name plain stage. Now in this stage, the gradient in the sense the slope decreases and the river flows slowly, and in this process, rather than cutting, the transportation is the main work. So river carries lots of alluvium with it, and here when the V-shaped valley is formed, it is little bit wider than the upper valley. So on the way it can form meanders too. Characteristics, the contour lines are far apart, representing it is a gentle slope, and the river bends and forms loops. The reason behind it, as it is a plain land, for river it's a little bit difficult to carry the lots of alluvium, so it just takes a bends and the twist on its way to continue its journey. Wide river valley. and tributaries may join the main river. And here are the chances some of the tributaries can come and join the river. And the last course of river, that is called as lower course. Now in the lower course, what happens? Here generally the river is about to meet to the ocean, and it is called by the name as delta stage. And here the flow of the river is extremely slow because the gradient is almost flat, means there is no slope at all, and this stage mainly does the work of deposition. And characteristics of this one is the contours are widely spaced, indicating that it is a very gentle slopes, and valleys are almost flat, and these are shown by a number of contour lines which will be crossing the river. And the last characteristics, a very wide meander oxbow lake may occur. And meanders are the places or the features which are mainly found in the course of the river, just like an island. An oxbow lake, it is somewhat the lake like an oxbow which is formed by the course of a river. You can just try to take a look at here and understand. When the river flows in such a way in the second course and at the third course, that is a lower course, and it just forms in such a way, later on the river cuts this place and then river forms a straight way. Now as the river formed the straight way, this area which was once used by the river remains separated, and it forms somewhat the shape of oxbow, and this is called as oxbow lake. So these are some of the patterns or the courses mainly the river formed from its top to bottom. Now with the help of these courses, we can try to understand that what type of drainage pattern the river made on its journey, and that we need to identify. Here it is an important part. The drainage patterns formed by the river. Now whenever the river forms some drainage patterns, these are mostly dependent on the relief features, that means the physical features of that area, geological structure of the area, the nature of rocks, means that rock structure is a soft, hard, slopes of the land, gentle or steep, and the amount of rainfall, more rainfall, moderate rainfall, or less amount of rainfall. So these factors greatly affect to the drainage pattern made by the river, and that forms different types of drainage pattern, and we will learn and try to find it out how to identify them in a proper way. There are major 4 drainage patterns that are mainly formed by the river, and the first important one is dendritic. The first one is dendritic. Now dendritic pattern is usually formed in the upper course of the river. Now upper course in the sense the first layer from the mountainous areas, and here some small streams join to the main river at an acute angle. They comes and try to join to the main river and forming an acute angles and making a shape like a tree. And this pattern develops where the structure of the rocks are what? Uniform. The rock structure is same from the top of the or at the bottom of the mountain. Now here the river flows and follow the slope of the land, and when the full structure is made along with its tributaries, it makes generally the pattern of what? The veins of a leaf. Veins of leaf. And this type of pattern is called as dendritic pattern. Take a look at here. In the image, we can understand main course of the river, plus these are some of the tributaries coming and joining at an acute angle to the main river. And if you see broadly, it just forms a structure like leaf, which is called as dendritic pattern. In the way we can try to understand with the help of diagram here. Drainage pattern is trellis or rectangular pattern. Now this pattern mostly we can see where there is a band of hard and soft rocks, and these kind of rocks makes the river to make a very valley, and especially on the soft bed of rocks. Now, when the soft bed of rocks are available, the streams and the tributaries comes and join to the almost right angle to the river, and because of that it just looks like the rectangular shape of the drainage. For example, in the image we can see this is the main type of river, and the tributaries and the streams join at an almost angle, and this angle, if you just broadly see, makes a structure like the rectangular. So this rectangular type of pattern is called by the name trellis. That's a second. Next, important drainage pattern is a radial. Now this mostly develop especially when the mountains are of a dome shape. We call them as a conical shape, or there are volcano cones are there, or some of the dejected plateaus. Now in this area what happens when the stream flows outwards? Now there are not only one streams, there are various streams are coming out from the one origin, and they forms the pattern like the spokes of a wheel. And this type of pattern generally recognized as radial pattern. You can take a look at into the picture. As it is a conical hill, many streams originate from the main point and forming a different pattern looking like a spokes of the wheel. This type of pattern is called radial. And the last important one, that is a disappearing pattern. Now this kind of pattern can be easily available in the areas of limestone or dejected regions with the porous rocks. Now the porous rocks are the rocks that absorb most of the water. They are soft and they can absorb lots of water. Now when the river tries to flow over such type of rocks, she can flow up to certain distance, and then most of the water is absorbed by these porous rocks, and here it is not possible for a river to move further, and water is completely drained here. And as the water is completely drained, on the topographical sheet it will be shown or marked with a broken line on a map. Take a look at this example here. The formation of this conical or the radial pattern up to the flat land, is it proper? But as soon as it enters into the flat land, here the rock structure changes, and as the rock structure changes, we can try to understand that here it is not possible for a river to carry the water further, so it becomes totally dry. So this type of pattern which has the broken lines at the end is called as disappearing pattern. So these are the different patterns made by the river, and you need to identify the patterns on the given topo sheet. Let's try to revise in a short and a quick way for the better understanding of these all four drainage patterns with the help of and try to understand this. The first one we already studied, it is dendritic. It is dendritic. How to identify this? When the river or the stream flows from the main mountainous regions, on the way itself we can see there are some of the streams comes and join at an acute angle to the main stream or its tributaries, and then making a different structure of drainage pattern. And if you just take a look at this type of shape, this is generally making the shape of the tree branches or dried leaf of the tree. So this type of drainage pattern is called by the name dendritic. Second, we learned about the trellis, or it is also called by the name rectangular. In this case what happens? As the main river is continuously flowing, there are some hard rocks and some soft rocks. Soft rocks, it is not possible for the river to carry water, and hard rocks, it can easily flow through it. So from the hard rock, the river or the stream or tributaries comes and join to the main river at an acute angle that is almost very same type of angle. And if you just take a look at this type of angle, the formation of this one becomes like a rectangular. And when you see such kind of a type or drainage pattern made onto the topo sheet, this type it is called by the name trellis or rectangular. Next, third one we have studied, that is called as radial. Now radial type is mainly found out onto the mountains, especially the hills. Now from the hill, just it is a conical type of hill or any conical shape of volcanic eruptions, and here many streams originate towards the down, and as they flows towards down, if you just take a look at this pattern is made in a such a way of wheel, and as it forms the type of wheel, then it is called by the name radial or the shape of a wheel. This is the third pattern. And fourth pattern, that is called by the name disappearing. As the word itself suggests, what is the disappearing mean? The same with the drainage pattern. When the river originates, it can be from the mountain, it can be from the hard surface, but as soon as it comes down onto the plain areas and where it comes in contact with the hard and soft rock, just like the limestones or the porous rocks, or some of the sandy areas are there. Here, for the mainstream or for the river, it is not possible to carry the water. Now as it is not possible to carry the water, here the river becomes dry. And as the river becomes dry, it is shown or marked on the river by the dots. And this type of structure is called by the name disappearing structure. So when you take a look at these kind of patterns, we can easily identify, need to understand how and when it is formed. That is the first dendritic, trellis is type of rectangular, radial is type of spokes, and disappearing is type of dot. And dendritic is of the tree-like or the leaf-like shape. But when you write the answers, you should write only the main words like dendritic, trellis, radial, or disappearing. That's all about the drainage pattern formed by the river, and we need to identify on the given topo sheet. That's all for the chapter number 17. I hope that you understand the concept in a clear and the proper way. In the next video, we will be discussing chapter number 18. Till then, do some practice from the topo sheet and try to find it out the different drainage pattern from the topo sheets available in your textbook. That's all for today's session. Thank you. Thank you very much.